Welcome to All Abilities Network Podcast. Now, here is your host, bilingual certified life coach, advocate, and the founder of All Abilities Network, Alvaro.
Hi and welcome to All Abilities Network Podcast. My name is Alvaro and I'm very happy to be with you today. Before I introduce our guest, I want to say thank you to people listening from the United States, from Canada. We have listeners in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in Australia. And if you want to be on the show, remember you can email me at allabilitiesnet@gmail.com. Many people are emailing me wanting to be on the show, which is pretty nice, even people with other disabilities. Because remember, this is all about abilities, any ability. All right, so let me tell you what happened with our next guest. I was browsing around on social media and I found Christina Campbell. Christina, she's blind, she's from the United States, and it caught my attention that it said on her profile, she doesn't know this, martial arts instructor. And I said, I did a few interviews in the past with martial arts instructors that were blind from the United States, especially a great friend of mine, Devin Fernandez, I should say Sensei Devin Fernandez, from New York City. He has RP like me. I met him in New York a few times. I went to his dojo and I tried to practice martial arts. I said tried because I didn't perform so well, but I did my best. I did my best at class for sure. And at that class, there was people like Pascual, who probably is going to listen to this one, Ed Plumacher, who's very well known in the blind community in the United States. He's an assistive technology specialist at the Lighthouse Guild. So anyhow, I'm very happy to have Christina with us. How are you doing, Christina?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Christina. And I want to hear all about your life. If you could tell us who is Christina, what is your life all about?
So, we talked about martial arts. That's a big part of who I am and who I was and hope to continue to be. But then my other kind of, I guess you would say, passion is working through music and technology and things like that to just pass on goodness to the world. So, yeah, either through martial arts or through helping people with self-defense or, also just being, participating in spaces where music and just passing on good stories about life and things like that is kind of my passion.
All right. So if you could tell us a little bit about your education and how did you become blind, all of that.
Okay. So I've always been legally blind, but I had what would be considered like high partial up until the year 2010. My education I was pretty lucky. I started in private school until about sixth grade. I had a really bad eye infection that basically took me out of school for like 3 months. And when it was time to go back to school, they said essentially I was so far behind that it would be better if I went to a school for the blind to get the services I needed, and so they could work with me privately to kind of catch me up to grade level, which I did. And I spent the rest of my education at a school for the blind in Maryland. Luckily, because I have good education skills and things like that, I also went to a regular high school at the same time, when those years came up. So I have a high school diploma, and, and did a little bit of college after that, but not too much, because by then I was very much into my martial arts world, and my goal was to own a school and become a martial arts instructor and full-time and just kind of do that thing. So that's leading up till 2010, when I woke up one day and said, I can no longer see Zoom text on my computer. I think it's time to pick up a cane and do life as a blind person, as a totally blind person. And that's basically what I've been doing for the last, 15 years. Wow.
Wow, Christina. Some people I interview say, I don't like schools for the blind. And some say, I do like them. What was your experience?
So as a teenager who really didn't appreciate school in general, because I'm, a bratty teenager,
Right.
I hated it. But as an adult looking back, I can say that the education I received at that school, even though I really seemed like I wasn't paying attention, I must have, because I've not been one of those people that had to revisit skills when they lost all their sight. I basically just kind of, like I said, picked up a cane and said, I guess we're doing this now. And, so the school definitely provided that ability for me. And so I am very grateful for that education as an adult. But no, as a high schooler, I hated it.
Christina, you lost most of your sight pretty much close to when I did. Sort of. I mean, you could say maybe 5 years, 6 years of something like that. But my next question comes from my own experience that I want to hear yours. And is, okay, so you are not able to see the screen anymore. Zoom text, goodbye, and hello, screen readers. How was that transition like, and what was your goal? In other words, you said, okay, I need JAWS. I guess it was JAWS at that time. And I need to learn what? I need to learn Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Google Docs, Google Calendar. What didn't you learn?
So I had a computer at the time, and I had already installed NVDA.
Okay.
To kind of learn it and just see what it was all about. So I kind of transitioned into that and kind of putzed my way around the computer. And then I ended up putting it down. I got an iPhone, and gave up the computer for many years, because I was able to do everything on my iPhone that I was doing on the computer, and do it faster, honestly, because I hadn't learned anything.
Right.
Like I said, I was putzing around. I was able to do the things, but it was clunky, but the iPhone was super fast and super accessible to me. So I've honestly only picked up a computer again in the last 4 years. That's wow. That's crazy to think about. Yeah, I was able to get an HP and again put NVDA on it, and again was like putzing around, and then I switched to Apple products, and now I'm pretty consistent and quick, and to the point that I'm actually an accessibility tester, and that's kind of my day job. What pays the bills. And so yeah, I got a lot of hats, right? But
Right.
yeah, so I'm good enough with the voiceover and stuff on my MacBook, and that's what I do.
Christina, in order to become a good accessibility tester, you need to work fast with your screen reader. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say you have to know enough. I'm lucky the job I work for does a lot of training, and they want people of different varying levels of ability. So if you're good enough to navigate your screen reader even at bare basics, you can do the job. It becomes increasingly easier, and you are an increasingly better tester as you progress with your abilities with screen readers, for sure.
Now, next question regarding that, because many people in our community are interested in these kind of jobs, but they don't know what it takes. So where do you learn that? Where do you study this?
So honestly, I didn't.
Okay.
That's a horrible answer, because I'd like to say, well, you can go take these free courses and blah, blah, blah. And I know there are some free courses out there. Where they exist, I'm not sure, because I'm kind of already doing the thing.
Right.
But, yeah, like I said, if you feel like you have a strong enough ability to navigate your screen and navigate web pages specifically, then go to some of these companies. I can name a few. There's Audio Eye and Fable, for example, are kind of the two big ones. And they'll kind of put you through your paces, but fairly. They don't have high expectations that you got to be like a coder and this, that, and the other thing. They just want to see that you can do the work.
And forgive me for my ignorance, but what is that work? If you could give me an example, let's say you go into McDonald's.com and they say, okay, test that accessibility. What should you do? You should go by headings, by links, by how does that navigation or analysis takes place?
So there's kind of two different types of testings I do. One is a very comprehensive way of testing. So it's very going through with a fine-tooth comb. So you'll test, like you said, for headings, making sure the heading structure is correct. You'll test buttons to make sure they're all labeled correctly and they work. Links. There's like 34, give or take, things that I would have to test and look at on each page of that test. And then there's another type of test that's more task-oriented. And you'll get your steps. And these companies are looking for, like, literally like a task flow or a workflow to make sure that workflow is accessible and you're able to complete it. So, for example, YouTube, it might be a task of find a short, listen to the short. Can you put a like on it? Can you make a comment? Is the button to report this short accessible? So like, and it's little bit more task oriented, like I said. And
Okay.
very specific.
Christina, I have a question. Let's say you are testing a website, but one of the things they say that you need to do, you are not able to do it, and you say to yourself, okay, either I am doing something wrong with this. In other words, I forgot to navigate well this website, or is not accessible.
Mhm.
Do you sometimes consider, now that your that your boss is not listening, do you consider sometimes to saying, okay, I need to make sure my work is well done? So what if I ask someone else to give it a try, to do what I'm doing, and see if it really is not accessible? Is that bad? Is that good? Because at the end of the day, the company is paying you to make sure the website has what it has to have. And if you are not able to do it yourself, because we are humans, we may not do it always well. Maybe someone may help you out for a second and just do a second test on it and say, you know what, you were wrong. You had to do. Yeah.
So I don't know all like the I'm gonna call it back office type of stuff that goes on, but I can say that most of these jobs go out to multiple times to multiple people. So
Okay.
So I'm not the only tester, and I may not be the only screen reader tester as well. There may be a screen reader tester. There may be a screen magnification tester. There also might be a someone who uses adaptive navigational skill technology, like a switch or things like that, that is also testing these same sites. So there's like checks and balances that happen. And then when I'm done, to the best of my knowledge, again, I don't know all of it.
Right.
It goes to another person. So my report then gets sent to another person, and potentially, and again, I don't know, someone with sight, because there are checkpoints in the in like the online protocol for accessibility that are only testable by someone with some sort of working vision, such as contrast.
Oh, right.
I would never be able to test.
Right.
Yeah. So there's checks and balances that kind of, pick it up. So I will tell you this, the one thing I had to learn, because I am very good at kind of finding the workarounds. I think we all are. Yeah. Right?
We become good at
it. Get around things.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So, was you cannot use workarounds. You have to think of this as solely bare bones, basic navigational skills. It's because not everybody knows the workarounds.
Good point. So, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's technically, so for example, if I'm doing an accessibility test where it's a mobile website, I cannot put screen. What is it called? Where you the screen
recognition?
Yeah, screen rec. I cannot put screen recognition on to kind of use it as a workaround, because not everybody knows how to navigate in that way. So if I can't get to it, I can't get to it, and then that's a bug, and I have to report it.
Now, that report, how do you write that report? It's on Microsoft Excel, it's on Word. How do you do that?
These are dashboards through the company, so it's all like internal.
Okay, and that's accessible to do.
Yes.
Okay.
I actually have tested my own job, if that makes sense. They've been like, please check the flow structure of whatever, and I don't want to go too into detail, but yes, it's literally their dashboard. I have tested their dashboard.
Okay, so some people may ask two questions more. One, how long it takes for you to finish the testing of a website in general? It may take a day, 2 days, a week. How long?
Oh, it varies. If it's multiple pages, it could take a long time, because if it's that 34 plus, checklist,
Oh, wow.
that has to happen for each page.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it's a 10-page test, that's 34 things I had to test 10 times.
Right. Okay.
So yes, that could take some time. On average, like for that type of test, it's a couple hours. Then for kind of the task-oriented test, it all depends on how many steps. I've never seen a test more than 10 steps, and at the most, I think that's taken me. I think the longest test I've done for them is like an hour and a half, and that was a pretty inaccessible site. So a lot of that time was spent like writing reports and notes for each thing that wasn't working.
Okay, so the $1 million question. On average, Christina, for our listeners, how much they pay these companies per month? How does that work? Is it part-time? Is it full-time?
It's technically considered contract work. So it's what jobs you pick up, and how long you take to do them, or how many pages they are. I can say, I'm not going to go into like great detail, but I can say if I have enough work and I pick up enough jobs, it's a good little supplementary income. I could not live on this as like a full-time job type of thing, but it's not necessarily designed to be that. It's and I'm sure maybe there are people that do, and they're probably getting way more jobs than me. I'm a busy person, so I don't always pick up a job the second it comes through, and it is grab it when you see it. So if there's 10 people keeping an eye on their inbox or on the dashboard, and a job comes in and it's only a 5-person test, and 5 people snag it right away, I'm out of luck.
Right.
So it is kind of like a rat race in a way, and it is kind of you got to be diligent and do the thing. But it like I said, my goal is to pay my rent.
Right.
Now, granted, my rent is not like through the roof, but if I can, if I can make my rental payment with my work, then that's a good month.
Right. It makes sense. Now, these companies are looking specifically for what kind of certification, or you just have to try your abilities online and they will tell you if you are approved or not? How is that?
There's an interview process, and they kind of take you through a mock test.
Okay.
And there's kind of step-ups. So when I first started with one company, all my tests were done over Zoom, and literally I'm talking into the void while I'm testing this page, unless there's a problem, and then you kind of just say, hey, I'm kind of stuck, you got any help for me, kind of deal. And then the person that's watching pauses the recording, and they kind of help you, or they see if there's an issue, blah, blah, blah. And then you pick it back up and you're sort of talking into the void again, because what they do is they take these Zoom recordings and the video recording, and they make a report for the company. Based on what they're seeing on the screen and what you've said as you're kind of talking through your process. That's how I started.
Okay.
And there is kind of some hand holding that was before that to kind of show you how that works. There's also some self-guided courses through the company, and there's meeting times through the company where you can get some extra training, things like that. And then as they see you're kind of progressing and doing well, more things open up to you. So now, for example, the task-based testing, which is what I prefer, opened up to me, and that's kind of where I hang out in the space. So yeah, it's kind of different levels, and there's people, your employers, I guess, and your supervisors that are kind of paying attention to the work you are doing, and they just say, okay, you're doing really good, let's move you to this thing and see how you do here now, kind of deal.
Christina, do you feel that this so powerful and not very good unemployment rate among people with disabilities, especially blind people, everywhere? Because it's everybody talks about the U.S., but everywhere. I mean, in Latin America, of course, it's even bigger. Do you think is the fault of the companies? Do you think we have something to do with that as well? Do you think we should change something when we are looking for a job? What is missing? Why the unemployment rate is so high?
Oh, let me put my soapbox down. All right, and I'm standing on it. So I think. So me and my partner, we have these conversations a lot because we see it a lot. I think the first thing is society and systemic in a way, where able-bodied individuals look at blindness specifically, though I'm sure it exists in other disabilities as well, but I think blindness gets a huge piece of this pie, and they look at it as like an inability to do anything. Right. And when you tie your shoes and walk out your front door, you're amazing.
Yeah.
We tell the story quite often. We know people that are highly educated, talking like 3 master's degrees.
Wow.
And many, many, many years of experience in education and in their field of choice. And they can walk into an interview, be the most qualified person in that interview space, but will lose the job to the less qualified sighted person because the people doing the hiring only see the blindness. That's where the systemic kind of comes in. I mean, I was kind of laughing the other day. I saw an ad for a book about a cat, a blind cat. Woohoo! I mean, normally, okay, cute, a blind cat and a woman that gets this cat and they have adventures. Woohoo! That sounds great, and it sounds fun, and it sounds, like a good little happy read, and I'm sure it is. But the back of my mind said, as I read this post, this blind cat inspires whatever the woman's name is to see life in a new way, or verbiage like that.
Yeah.
language like that is what hurts the blind community. I'm not an inspiration. I am so happy if people are inspired by me. I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more happy if I inspire you to want to be better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it. We talk about all this, inspiration, posts on Facebook about blind people and how amazing we are and this, that, and the other thing. And the joke around here is they're designed for, people to cry in their coffees and donate to these organizations or whatever it might be. But then when that same blind person walks into their place of business, they're afraid they're going to trip over a trash can, so they're not going to get hired.
Yeah. Good point, Christina. Good point. Now, martial arts. How did you get into that, and how good are you? You're very good at it.
I like to think I'm good. Admittedly, I'm a little out of practice, but I'm at the stage of life where practice is not as physical as it is mental. So mentally, I am very prepared, and I know what I would and will do if need be. How did I get started? I was about 12, 14, give or take.
Oh, wow.
And I walked into a local martial arts school after, let's just say, I'm a kid of the 90s, so I grew up on Power Rangers and all that fun stuff. And I don't know, probably wasn't old enough to be watching this show, but I was watching like Walker, Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris and all that kind of stuff as a kid. And so I always kind of loved martial arts and wanted to do the thing. So I walked into a school with my dad, and it was a karate school. And they basically said to me and my dad, they said, so we really don't see how this is going to work. And let me remind you, I still had working sight.
Oh.
Pretty good working sight, but it scared them. Because unfortunately, in the martial arts community, there is this thing called we use the term McDojo. So it's like your fast food martial arts. So they have a set program.
Oh.
It's going to take you 2.5 years, give or take, to get a black belt, and we get you in and we get you out. Pay the fees and you're golden, kind of deal, right?
Okay.
And if they have to change any of that, they get scared. And so they basically said, this isn't going to work. But there's this school down the road. It was the best no in my life. And I don't like to hear no that often, but that was the best one because it set me on a track to a school, martial arts school. The art was called Aikido. And it's a very hands-on martial art, uses your opponent's balance and movement against them to pull them off balance and get them to the ground and subdue them in some way, shape, or form. So it was a very traditional dojo. Like, to the point you walked in the door, you bowed. You kicked, your shoes were off the second you came in the building, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Very, very, very traditional space. So it gave me a very good, not only, physical start to martial arts, but a very good philosophical start to martial arts.
Right.
I didn't get sucked into the fast pace, get a belt. Oh, you're a black belt.
Yeah.
I learned what real martial arts was.
Mm-hmm.
Then I moved away and unfortunately could no longer attend that school, and was lucky enough to find a taekwondo school.
Okay.
That was willing to train me and had similar, less traditional. Taekwondo doesn't tend to be super, super traditional. But traditional enough that there was a very strong base of you had to know your stuff. You didn't just get a belt for looking pretty. So to the point, at 19, when I got my first degree black belt from that school, I was the only person that actually passed my black belt test.
Wow.
There were 4 other people, I believe, and these were kids too, like younger than me, and they did not pass, and they had to, I don't want to say suffer the disappointment, but it was like, and it was kind of disappointing for me because I wanted to be all excited, and then my kindness kicked in, and I'm like, I can't, jump up and down and be excited when these poor kids that are much younger than me are, in their parents' arms crying because they lost their, they didn't pass their test.
Right.
Now, they all eventually passed. There's makeup opportunities and such. But that day of, I was it. And so that tells you the difference between kind of a fast food martial art as opposed to a school that, wants to create good students. So my first degree, I got at 19. I moved around a few more times, but was able to continue my Taekwondo specifically training and work my way up and through to a 3rd degree black belt. COVID hit and everything kind of screeched to a halt. I was about a year away from testing for my 4th degree, which would have made me considered a master, quote unquote. I don't buy into that, but but technically by rank, I would have been considered a master in Taekwondo. I have about I have a few other martial arts styles under my belt per se. I trained in Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's martial art. And that is very all encompassing. So I have a decent knowledge of like jiu-jitsu and ground grappling, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and things like that. I have a good knowledge of stand-up fighting, like Muay Thai and things like that. And then some weapons, like practical weapons training, like eskrima and things like that.
Okay.
And I hold a 2nd level green belt in that art. And then I have a red belt, which is like 2 levels from black, in an art that's kind of like sort of the same idea. A local guy kind of created this grappling style, which is kind of has some judo and some, like wrestling and jiu-jitsu and a whole bunch of different other martial arts kind of combined into a program specifically for grappling. And I hold a red belt in that as well.
Christina, do you miss that?
Part of me does. Part of me does not. I'm not necessarily interested in training to get farther anymore. Though it would be nice to kind of have that master's rank under my belt. That would be kind of cool. But I'm more in the phase of I've been teaching off and on for since I got my black belt. I started kind of assisting in classes, but like officially teaching since like 2006.
Okay.
We'll say, give or take. So that's a lot. Oh my gosh, that's almost 20 years. Again, COVID kind of put a stop to that, so that's not really fair to say I've been really teaching all that time. But I'm kind of more into the finding solutions for people phase of this. So I say in my emails, I always have, my signature says, Christina Campbell, 3rd degree black belt self-defense instructor, or something on those lines.
Yeah.
And that is where my specialty, what I'd like to say my specialty kind of lies, is in self-defense. I've been some way, form, shape, been teaching self-defense since before I even got my black belt. At the School for the Blind where I attended, they had a blind self-defense instructor program come in that was specifically designed for self-defense for those who are blind. I took the class because I'm me and I love that stuff. And so I took the class, and then the next year when they came back, I took the next level, quote unquote, but I also was learning to be an instructor, or what they called at that time a mentor, in that program. And then that program, for whatever reason, didn't exist anymore, and so the School for the Blind wanted to develop their own sort of program they could teach these kids. And of course, being the resident martial artist on campus, my services were asked upon, and between my knowledge and some knowledge through the state police, because there's state police self-defense programs and such, we developed a self-defense program for the blind at the Maryland School for the Blind. So yeah, I've kind of been doing the whole self-defense thing since like 1999 ish. And it's what my specialty when I was teaching at my last school that I worked at was I would get these kids, and we would break down the class into small groups, and if they needed their self-defense curriculum gone through and things like that, Christina was where you went. And so, I would work with these kids, and they would learn their self-defense moves. That's my specialty.
Christina, do you go to New York City and you travel on the subway at 2 a.m. feeling I am a martial arts specialist? Don't mess with me. Kind of. I mean, is that the kind of woman you have become? In other words, for our female listeners who are blind or visually impaired, listening to you, and they say, okay, that's girl power, as they said on Spice Girls music. Yep. Can you tell us how it feels? I mean, not making a joke out of it, but that seriously, as a woman, what has that done for you? And certainly, if you go to a subway in New York City at 2 a.m., well, it doesn't hurt to have your skills, and being a woman even more, sadly, but it's the reality. So
it is. It's reality. You are right. I'm no superhero. All right. And I will be completely everything, all cards on the table.
Yeah.
Some of those spaces I walk into with a sense of anxiety.
Okay.
However, it's not necessarily an anxiety, a crippling anxiety.
Right.
Like some people might have.
Yeah.
And I would call it more of a pre-intuition. We all have this internal voice, this intuition. Ooh, this space doesn't feel right, or whatever.
Yeah.
This is before that. it's almost like my body goes into this hyper aware state.
Right.
Even when I don't necessarily have to be that aware. But what that does for me is it kind of means that I know in my head that if I need to call on my abilities, I've kind of moved them to the front of my brain, as opposed to, oh, they're just kind of hanging out here chilling, waiting to be called on. No, that kind of hyper awareness kind of moves my brain into just in case we're right here mode.
Right.
There is something empowering about that. There's something, even though through the anxiety of it, which I've learned to work with and through, it is empowering, and it almost is a confidence that underlies all of it. Even though, like I said, even though you might feel anxious, and even though it may feel awkward or whatever, there is a confidence. Now, I didn't always have that confidence. Well, that's not true. I always had the confidence, sometimes to the point of overconfident.
Right.
And learning to find that balance. That's why I say I'm more in the mental side of my martial arts training at this point, because I've learned to have to find the balance in who I am and who the people are around me, and who I let into those spaces and who I don't, and this, that, and the other thing. That's martial arts too, and that's self-defense, and it's almost the most important self-defense is to know your own self and to know who you're letting into yourself and your emotional and your mental space. Because if that breaks down, that confidence goes away. If you let somebody toxic in your space, for example, and you were, third degree black belt confident, can walk down the street and know you got this, and you let someone in your space that is beating you down mentally, your confidence will be the first to go. And I'm not saying I ever was that in that space. I wasn't. I've been very lucky. I don't have that much. There's toxicity and everything, but nothing to the point that I've been put in a really harmful type of situation kind of deal.
Right.
But I recognize it, and I recognize it in other people, and I recognize it in kids when I teach, and I recognize it in adults when I teach. And I'm like, this is a kid that, requires not just this physical self-defense, but there's something more happening here. As an instructor, I'm what's called a mandatory reporter. And what that means is if, for example, I grab a kid's arm to learn a self-defense move and they're flinching back like I'm going to beat the crap out of them, for lack of a better word, I need to now assess what this is and go to my boss and say, hey, blah, 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 is acting differently or acting in a way that I am finding concerning, and then we have to handle it.
Right.
So there's a lot of mental care that goes on, not just, beating the crap out of each other.
Christina, listening to you say a lot mental, and I say to myself, I have an anecdote for you and for our listeners. I have been many times in New York City, and in one of my trips, I met this lady that worked in the education field in New York City. I don't recall. She was a teacher at some place. She was visually impaired as well, and I was saying to her, are you guys aware of the importance of the mental health issues that people in the blind community suffer from? And she said, not really. I don't think we are as As a country in the United States, as a society, I don't think we are. As a planet Earth, I don't think we are. I don't think we are aware of the mental health issues in the non-blind community either. And I don't think we're doing much about it. I want your take on that, specifically for our community. How is that mental state, and how is that improving or not improving, and what kind of resources are available to improve it?
So, in this house, we take mental health very seriously. My partner and I. It is probably what guides most of our day. I think in the blind community specifically, there's a lot of layers in the community that the able-bodied community may not even think about. For example, sometimes just getting up and walking out that front door to someone who maybe did not have the greatest upbringing in the experience that I had, where, you know, the world's your oyster and you can do whatever, not in an inspirational way, but because you can.
Right.
There's people, unfortunately, in the blind community that have been told, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't. And if you hear that all your life, or a huge part of your life, you believe it.
Yeah.
So even walking out that front door to an able-bodied person, that's like an everyday occurrence. But to someone who's heard no their entire life, that is like a big mental mind screw in a way, right? And it sits on you like a brick. And until we all, those of us who had the world at their feet and those of us who have not, can reach out to each other in some way, shape, or form and say, it's okay, I see you where you are. I see you, person that has been told no. It is okay. Let's do this together. I wasn't told no, but I'm not going to beat you down even more. I'm going to reach my hand out and pick you up and say, you can, watch, let's do this together. And unfortunately, in the blind community and in the sighted community and all community, there's levels of abilities, there's levels of shaming, there's levels of just all the things, right? And when you're very dialed into a community as tight-knit as the blind community, you see it, and you see those people that are hurting others, and then you see those people that are helping. And I want to be remembered as a helper, I can tell you that much. So yeah, and I think to the second half of that question, mental health is important for all people. I think again, it is somewhat systemic as well. I think there's different cultures that look at mental health as weakness, and so it's not addressed. And I think there's other cultures that look at mental health as really important, and it's sometimes overly addressed, if that could be possible. So, but I think in all things are right as long as it's being addressed. Ignoring it is not the answer. And admittedly, again, cards on the table, I haven't always thought like that. I spent a lot of my life kind of as the suck it up and deal kind of person. I recognized other people's mental health journeys, but I did not necessarily recognize my own.
Honesty is the best policy. So,
yes, sir.
Christina, I love your attitude, and I love the powerful interview we are having, because we are discussing important topics for our community. I would like your opinion about, I always say, the United States has millions of agencies and organizations and foundations regarding blindness. You have the NFB, ACB, all those letters. How much they really do, Christina, and where do you think they are missing the point? Because many people I know say, yeah, it's okay, but they could do so much more. They could focus on things that mean more for us, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they fight among each other. Like our organization is better than yours, and you should be more independent than this, and blah blah blah. What is your take of all of that?
I'm similarly opinioned. I think if we'll just say the two major ones, right? NFB and ACB. We know those are the two big ones.
Yeah.
We know that they are of the blind, which is an important thing to note. They are not for the blind. They're not sighted people making decisions for us. They are of us, of blind people. They are very different. And in their differences, that is where the points are being missed, I think. And I think if they could see each other's perspectives and even embrace some of it. So, for example, when I think of NFB, I think of very capable, very independent, very, very top of the top blind. And they surround the people in that organization, surround themselves with like-minded people.
Right.
Not a bad thing. Where it becomes a bad thing is when you have people that maybe are not the glass ceiling breakers or the ladder climbers, but need community. Whether that's just to know more blindness, more people in blindness. I mean, there's people in, central United States that may have never seen another blind person. I mean, it's becoming less and less common, possibly, but you never know. I mean, if you're in the cornfields of Iowa, you might be the only blind person. Seriously. Right. So, NFB, I'm treading lightly because I kind of don't move in the circles, but I do. So I want to be fair.
Yeah.
And, NFB has not done well with people who are blind and may be considered neurodivergent, for example. Mm-hmm. May have autism underneath or learning disabilities, or again, even people that aren't the ceiling breakers, mm-hmm. aren't the ladder climbers. You're just kind of the average Joe blind.
Yeah.
Right? They don't necessarily do well with that. And they're not necessarily super welcoming to that. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And that is where ACB has picked up the pieces, essentially. They are very open to those who are neurodivergent or have autism or have other things going on. I say blindness never comes alone. There's something.
Yeah.
Even if it's just not a not knowing of your space or whatever, it's never alone. So ACB kind of picked up the pieces where NFB dropped them. When it comes to legislature and things like that, NFB feels like they have their finger on the pulse a little bit more sometimes than ACB. But I feel like ACB is so much more like person oriented. And so even though they may be kind of out of touch with some of their legislature and their advocacy things, like when it comes to like the political side of things, what they do on the human side of things, to me, is almost more important. Do I want advocacy? Do I want, things to be accessible? Do I want there to be, government policies put forward to aid, those who are blind and disabled? Absolutely. But I'll leave that to NFB. It's what they're good at. Let's be honest. It is relatively what they are good at now that they've missed marks too. Let's be honest. But it is what they're good at. ACP is good at people. And that's kind of where I sit, as you can tell. I'm about the person. I'm about seeing you where you are, picking you up, holding your hand, being with you in your moment, whatever that moment is, and hopefully leaving you as we part ways better for being in that space with me.
Right. Okay, so our last topic that I love music, but this interview has been so powerful about other subjects. I don't want to. I've done many interviews about music. I love it, and people know that. But I want to touch on music just a little bit because the other topics to me are really more important right now for our community. Music, everybody loves it, and that's wonderful. But the other topics, I want them to stay around for our listeners. So I know you love music and everything. Can you tell us about your radio station? And I know you play the drums, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So my partner and I have a show on HKC Radio. We are not the proprietors of this station. It is run by one of our friends, and he's kind of our boss. But we decided that we wanted to kind of pick up a show and have a go at it. So our show is actually called Sonic Synergy. And my partner is more of the musician than I am, but I do play the drums, and I do a lot with music, whether it's for our church or even just participating in his things that he does musically. But the show, Sonic Synergy, is kind of a hodgepodge of not just music, but kind of morning show, morning zoo, kind of goofiness, but also with very clear intent. We lean away from being harmful to others. So if we talk about you, for example, on the show, our rule is that we have to be able to put an @ in front of your name. So I should be able to tag you in a clip of us talking about you, and you be proud of it.
Nice.
So for example, we talk about some of his bands, and there's nothing bad going on in the bands anyway, but we're not going to say, oh, that drummer, he was a, pain in the butt. We didn't really like him.
Yeah.
Because then we would not be able to show that clip to anybody.
Of course.
So we always speak positive about people that we do talk about or talk with on the show. But it is goofy. It is irreverent a lot of times. But never towards people. That is the rule. Never irreverent towards anyone specifically. And we talk about blindness related things. We talk about just anything. It's kind of like just us sitting behind a microphone and talking about our day, talking about our week, talking to people that come in on the team talk or call into the show, and just sharing our life experiences and our our day and our just what's going on, and just providing a space for everybody. And it's called Sonic Synergy because I came up with the name a couple years ago, sort of my brand that I'm working on, of this just idea of all types of art, sonic art, because that's all we had at the time, right? When everybody was kind of in lockdown,
Right.
all we had was phones and Zoom or whatever, right? We didn't have, we couldn't see people.
Yeah.
So it was all these people doing their art in a sonic way. So whether you're a spoken word poet or a writer who's reading their book, or a musician of some sort, whatever your art is,
right.
It's all these sonic things pulling together into synergy. One, we have a logo that is very similar to those who have seen or are seeing, similar to the Dark Side of the Moon album cover, where it's a rainbow going into a prism, coming out as a single beam of light.
Yeah.
It's the same idea, except what we have is multiple rainbow colored sound waves going into a microphone and coming out as a single sound wave on the other side. Thus, sonic synergy.
Oh, nice. By the way, for our listeners, consider probably maybe one of the 5 best albums of all time, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Absolutely great album. Love it.
Yes, indeed. And so, Christina, how can people get in touch with you, listen to your radio show, and maybe, I don't know, hire your services?
So, we'll start with the radio show. We have a website. It's called sonicsynergy.space. It takes you to a very old link tree. Bear with me. I'm working on it. But bookmark that and check back frequently. There'll be changes. Then we can be heard on hkcradio.com every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 6 to 9. So today.
Well, we are recording on a Sunday for our listeners, yeah.
Yes. And then there's also archive page if you were to go to that website, and you can catch all the archives of Sonic Synergy as well. We also have a YouTube. It's Sonic Synergy. I guess however you would search that out on YouTube. We are building that as we go, and most of that's just kind of clips, short form clips from the show. So if you don't have time to sit and listen for 3 hours, you can catch some of what we've been doing on there. We're also on this new service called Jacket FM.
Oh, tell me, Christina, sorry to interrupt you. Tell me about Jacket FM, please, for our listeners. I know it has audio content. How does it work, Christina?
So it's very much, I've been calling it the TikTok meets WhatsApp meets Reels. Shorts. So it's, I haven't necessarily locked down the algorithm of what type of audio content gets the most views yet, if it's short form or long form.
Yeah.
But basically you can just put audio content up there. You can record it live from your phone, or you can have an audio file already pre-existing and you just post it up there, and that's where the Reels and the TikTok kind of comes in, because it's a growing scroll that you can just swipe through people's content, and you have followers, and you can follow people, obviously, and people just post up throughout the day and stuff. It's pretty cool. I've not dug into it super a lot yet. I mean, I've only been on it for 2.5 weeks. So,
Christina, I have a question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think it will be possible to make money out of that?
I don't know. I'm not in it for the money. If
I
we're
know,
being,
but many
but
blind people always ask me, okay, so is there any other social media outlet to make money other than Facebook or maybe YouTube or maybe TikTok? So it wouldn't hurt.
I think Jacket FM is too new.
Yeah.
And too niche right now.
Yeah.
I think if it maintains and if it continues to grow, and this is the important part, grows outside of the blind community.
Yeah, it has to.
That is when the money potentially could be made.
Yeah.
Right now, it's very blind heavy, at least to my knowledge.
Oh.
And again, at least to my knowledge, I've only been out there for 2 weeks.
Right.
If it grows out of that space, I think yes. But that's why I also jumped in on it very early. I want to look. YouTube and TikTok and all those other things, the algorithms have existed for so long.
Yeah.
And people know how to bust the algorithms and make the money off of the algorithm. Yeah. I do not. I didn't jump in at the start. I didn't do any of that to really get the knowledge of how it works. This I did. So if it can be done, I got in early enough that I can watch it and hopefully grow with it. Again, not doing it for the money, but if there's a possibility for it, hopefully I got in at the ground floor enough to be able to, snag my little corner of it.
Yeah, and Christina, to be fair, I think it would be wonderful because millions of people in the blind community would love to be able to not necessarily have to look good in a webcam or using their phone. Am I centered or not?
Yeah, that's the hardest part of like YouTube and stuff, right? Like that's the part we're trying to figure out ourselves.
Yeah. And
right now, we just put our logo on our YouTube page and bring our audio under it. That's literally what we're doing right now. But we want to do more, but if there's a space where we don't have to, heck yeah, I'm in.
I mean, come on. Yeah, so for our listeners, I think that's going to be huge. I really hope it becomes huge. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be a wonderful way of expressing ourselves to everybody, including anyone who is anyone in any language. I think it's wonderful. And I have to say, Christina, I never understood why Facebook didn't make it possible 10 years ago, 5 years ago, to have a mini audio player in all of the profiles to be able to say something with voice. I never understood that, why they didn't do it.
Yeah, and they started with this Facebook Live thing, but when it first started, it wasn't very thought out. And now it's like a thing, but because in the beginning it wasn't very thought out, it's still kind of, I think for our community, still very kind of glitchy.
Yeah, it's kind of glitchy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I interrupted you. You were saying, how can people reach out to you? Sorry.
Yes. Okay, so you can also reach out to me. I'll give this email. It's sonicsynergy11. I'll spell it SONICSYNERGY, the number 11 at gmail.com. That's where I can be reached at all times with any questions or about martial arts, about the radio show, about anything. Definitely feel free to reach out and say, hey, I'm always out here. Is there anything else I missed? I think that's kind of the main thing. So that's sonicsynergy.space, my email, sonicsynergy11 at gmail.com, and hkcradio.com.
Okay, and we'll have those links, of course, on the podcast notes. But Christina, on Jacket FM, do you post your whole show 3 hours or only little clips?
Right now it's just clips. I'm looking into the live booth feature. Okay. There is a potential in the near future we may go live through the entire show.
Now, are you able to post a whole podcast show on there, or is only little clips saying hello, my name is Alvaro, and that?
Right now it's just clips.
Okay.
I feel like 3 hours is. Oh, my partner said he just posted a 2-hour one. Oh yeah, that was from a live show.
Okay, it's possible. Okay.
It is possible.
Okay.
He posted 2 hours. Again, I'm trying to read the algorithm to see what gets watched.
Right, but it's interesting, Christina, and for our listeners, that maybe podcasters out there will include this as a social media outlet to put their content on.
I think they should. I think it's a good space to do that, and I think as it gets better and as it grows, we're watching features get stronger each and every week almost. It will turn into a really good podcasting space, I believe.
Well, Christina, it's been wonderful to have you on. I feel that when you have these kind of conversations, it's exciting, to hear again. And I know our listeners will be sending emails about this one. So it was great, Christina. You do a lot of good things in your life. You help people. You stay healthy, which is wonderful, especially mentally, my friends, mentally.
Yes.
Okay, so I just have to say thank you for listening to everybody. This is Alvaro from All Abilities Network podcast saying good night.